Right then, at 5 p.m. on a Friday evening, Basketball Ireland drop a statement in relation to the Ireland senior women's team upcoming fixtures against Israel. I'm going to start this evening by reading the statement in full before we chat to Rebecca O'Keeffe. And it goes like this. After extensive deliberation with various stakeholders, the Board of Basketball Ireland has decided that Ireland will compete in the upcoming FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers. Mindful of the dreadful humanitarian situation in Gaza, the board seriously considered all options available, including a withdrawal from the FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers. Ultimately, it is not individual federations, such as Basketball Ireland, who determine who is permitted to enter and play international tournaments. It is the responsibility of FIBA Europe and other international sporting bodies. Whilst we fully acknowledge the tragic events of October 7th, 2023, Basketball Ireland is deeply concerned with the ongoing suffering being faced by the people of Gaza and has raised this with FIBA Europe. We've also informed FIBA Europe that we will only face Israel in a neutral venue. Basketball Ireland has already experienced a 14-year absence from international basketball in the recent past. We have since worked tirelessly on and off the court to return to the highest level, and the punitive sanctions from FIBA Europe, should we not elect to participate in FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers, would be extremely damaging to Irish basketball and the women's game. Basketball Ireland CEO John Sheahan said, "The Board of Basketball Ireland have given lengthy consideration over our participation in the FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers. Facing Israel in these circumstances is not a scenario we would wish, but there has been no change in Israel's status within sport made by FIBA Europe, the IOC or any other major sporting body. FIBA Europe have been quite clear to us that sanctions would be imposed on Basketball Ireland should we elect not to play, which would be hugely damaging to the sport here. Naturally, there is major concern about the suffering being inflicted on the people of Gaza, which is frankly unacceptable. We would implore all parties in the current conflict to return to peace and for humanitarian aid to be fully restored to Gaza." Upon commencement of FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers competition, Basketball Ireland would have been subject to a fine of up to €80,000 should Ireland fail to fulfil their first fixture with Israel, while failure to play the return game would lead to an additional fine of up to €100,000 and removal from the FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers, as well as the FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2029 qualifiers. Should Basketball Ireland have elected to withdraw from the FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers campaign entirely before it commenced, a fine of up to €30,000 would be applied, while FIBA Europe rules state that there is an option to impose further sanctions, including disqualification from future competitions and additional financial penalties. Ireland are in Group A of FIBA Women's EuroBasket 2027 qualifiers alongside Bosnia and Herzegovina, Israel and Luxembourg. They begin their campaign with home games against Luxembourg and Bosnia and Herzegovina on November 12th and 15th, followed by an away game against Israel on November 18th. So a lengthy enough statement, but we just wanted to put forward the entirety of what Basketball Ireland have said this evening. Rebecca O'Keeffe, former Ireland player at an international level, obviously, is with us on the line. Rebecca, thanks a million for taking the call. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Your thoughts initially on that statement?
Initially, I'm angry. I'm extremely disappointed. Yeah, it's not a good feeling. I just think it exposes a lot of hypocrisy and double standards. And at this point, I just don't know how in good conscience we can play against a genocidal regime, how we can normalise the presence of a genocidal regime. And I know back in 2022, Basketball Ireland themselves wrote to FIBA and said, we are not playing against Belarus. And many other federations did the same, and then FIBA removed Belarus. So what is different with Israel? Why is Israel continuing to do whatever they want? And also, it's outrageous that Israel is in competition. They should firstly be removed. Like, bottom line, remove Israel from competition. But I'm very disappointed with this statement, and a very lengthy statement. Also, some of the wording is quite weak. I mean, it's not a conflict, it's genocide. I mean, a lot of these things, it's too long now. We need to take a stand and show leadership, show moral authority, and I think that's not what we're seeing. And if organisations took a stand, it would protect the players, it would show solidarity to Palestinians, and it would just be a total condemnation and rejection of Israel.
Why do you think the language was weaker than most people would like in that statement. There's one thing not taking the stand, but as you say, the language is watered down. Why do you think that's the case?
It's, I mean, we see this on the diplomatic stage a lot, that they all couched in the same terms of conflict or humanitarian situation. And these are the safe terms that they use because obviously if you call it a genocide, there's then that obligation. But it's very watered down, it's very weak. It's not calling it what it is. And also they were probably thinking, well, we still have to play against Israel because that's our intention now. And last time Israel falsely accused Ireland of being anti-Semitic, so they're probably trying to circumnavigate that. But call it what it is.
The hypocrisy that you point out there, just to give the full quote from what you're referring to. So John Sheahan, Basketball Ireland CEO, was CEO at that point as well. And around the Belarus situation, he said, "We wrote to FIBA earlier this month to say that we would not fulfil the upcoming EuroBasket 2023 qualifiers against Belarus in November and February due to their support of Russia and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Our stance was supported by the Irish Government, Sport Ireland and the Basketball Ireland Board. This decision by FIBA Europe at their recent annual assembly is the right one, and our senior women's international team can focus on the remaining qualifiers with clarity, while our underage teams can have certainty around their respective fixtures." Their approach to this has been entirely different, and when you put those two things side by side, it is inarguable that there is a double standard over these situations.
Massively. I mean, it's clear as day that there is a precedent here, firstly, to act, that national federations have acted before without FIBA. The pressure was then put back on FIBA. FIBA acted. Now, I will say it did come at a time when a lot of organisations like FIFA and UEFA and all these governing bodies were removing Russia and Belarus at the time, so they were probably protected in that. But at the same time, they have shown that they took a stand before. Why are you not taking a stand now? And it's just so hypocritical, and the double standards are plain to see. And I mean, rightly so, that action was taken then, but it should be taken again now, is my opinion. Like it's never okay to play against a genocidal regime, and playing against them normalizes what's happening. It's sportswashing a genocide. And then Israel takes every advantage of that. And then we have seen before from the last games, Israel weaponizes this for propaganda purposes. I mean, you remember from the last fixtures, they had guns in the court, they had active duty soldiers, they had former IOF soldiers on the team, they had political messaging. I mean, they had everything, and they weren't sanctioned. So we can see how not sanctioning Israel, they're getting away with everything. They're acting with impunity. And this is consistent even on the political stage. It's everywhere. And I think sports boycotts could be a very effective way of resisting this. And in fact, in apartheid South Africa, many people cite the sporting boycott as being the decisive factor in bringing apartheid to an end. So I think there's a lot of merit in taking a stand and taking a moral stand and boycotting or removing Israel, removing these egregious states.
Can that still happen, Rebecca? The players ultimately have to go out on the court on a couple of separate occasions. If they refuse to go out on the court, the boycott can still happen, right?
If the players refuse.
Yeah, to take to the court against Israel, they still have the power to not follow through with this. This is officialdom of Basketball Ireland. I don't know what the players are thinking. I don't know what the generally held view is within the senior women's international team. But there is still a possibility for them to do something pretty extraordinary, given their own governing body has supported essentially these couple of fixtures. But it is still something that they have power over to an extent.
Yeah, and like last time, so we would ideally like FIBA to remove Israel, like first call, second then the national federations, and then there is an option for players to boycott. And last time 5 players did boycott, but then we did see that the players who played were in an awful position. I mean, I've always said the players shouldn't be in this position, because if organisations took decisive action, they would protect them and take that decision out of their hands. And then I suppose if players do boycott, they will still look to field a team, in which case you're then possibly asking younger players to come up, or maybe if there's their first cap. And, you know, it's not exactly a choice sometimes for them to go. And they're in an awful dangerous position. And it's not, I don't want to speak for any player. I need to make it clear, I'm not on the team currently. I wasn't on the team when they fulfilled those fixtures last time. So I can't speak for them, but I can only imagine what they're going through. And again, they need to be protected. And we need to remember that it is the organisations that need to be, held accountable here.
It's a good point that if players as individuals start to boycott, Ireland will likely field 5, 10 players anyway, and will probably go with fulfilling the fixture, assuming Basketball Ireland continue down this path. I wonder, is there a real sense of this being different? Like, I remember speaking to you about this 18 months ago and definitely felt a lot stronger, not overly strong, but a lot stronger about the idea that Basketball Ireland have outlined how financially damaging it would be to them, and their hands are tied given FIBA have been weak enough on this. 18 months later, I'd have much less sympathy for that, given how the situation has got a whole lot more grim, to use my own watered down language, I guess, on it. Does that not change the perception for the players?
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different landscape now. It was never okay to play then. It's not okay now. But yeah, like you said, I think I called for it back in November 2023. And we're here again now, and we're still calling for the same thing. And the situation is so much worse. I just don't, it's unfathomable that we're still here, honestly. But yeah, since then, the public support has grown. So there is massive public support there was even suggestions of, so, okay, the government can step in and act. That was a suggestion. There were suggestions of crowdfunding, possible fines, because again, they've said that the fines can be imposed, but they're an up to. So that's that limit. So we don't know how much it will be. And also, sometimes it's just bigger than basketball, it's bigger than money, and you have to take a moral stand here. And yeah, I do think it is a much different landscape. I think a lot of people just like, how can you play? How in good conscience play against a genocide regime? How can you then sports wash? And like, how can you have your sport become associated with that then? So I do think it is much different now. And yeah, like you say, it to me it would be a no-brainer decision, but other people don't think so. And I know firsthand like what so that those few years that Basketball Ireland did not have national teams, I know what that's like, because I know what it's like to have your international career cut short. I was in around that time when there were no national teams to play, and that was a different situation. I think that was financial mismanagement or whatever, but there were no national teams, so I know exactly what it's like to not have the opportunity. But sometimes it's bigger than sport. And
I
it's also like a price to pay, or you might get vilified or scapegoated, but it's absolutely nothing in comparison to what Palestinians are going through. And that is like abundantly clear.
I'm not sure about you, but I suspect you have also begun to lose faith, or have a long time ago lost faith in associations such as FIBA, particularly FIFA, UEFA, sporting bodies with power in doing anything to change. We can both agree that it is totally unfair that it falls on to the national federations, and even more unfair that it now falls on to the players. However, this is the reality that over the last almost 2 years we have been presented with, and we have enough evidence, I think, at this point, Rebecca, to realise that a international federation, a powerful sporting federation, is not going to do anything. So it does fall onto the national federations. Without being too blunt about it, at what stage will the players start to realise actually the responsibility might have to come down to them? Because as a group of players, they are Irish. We are a country that has had greater sympathy for the plight of the Palestinians longer than most other countries in the world. It is unfair, but it is just about the only realistic sporting protest you can see happen and make international waves.
Yeah, and who knows? That could be the action that sparks more action. You just don't know. And we would actually push them to get in touch with Bosnia and Herzegovina and Luxembourg to do the same thing. The national federations take a stand, put the pressure back on FIBA. I mean, the players probably already know. I mean, these statements coming out, that's a change from last time as well, because they're more prepared now. They know what they're facing, and the players are in awful position again. But you might be that catalyst, that domino effect for more sporting boycotts. And we cited last time that Latvia, where the games were hosted, they are party to the Convention Against Apartheid in Sport, meaning they have an obligation to act against apartheid, but they hosted the games. Bosnia and Herzegovina is party to the same convention. They have an opportunity to act. I would also call on the Irish Sporting Minister, Patrick O'Donovan, to ratify that convention. He could do that. So there's many options as well. And also before this, so you're saying about the complete double standard from these organisations not acting. They do not act in our interest. They're not protecting us. they show this time and again because, I mean, oppressive and discriminatory structures are reproduced in sport. And it's then up to the players to demand that change because organisations are not acting in our interests. So you're talking racism, homophobia, ableism, all these problems exist in sport, and it has always come down to players to protest. And players shouldn't have to. Athletes shouldn't have to be activists. But unfortunately, this is the world we're living in. And we can see how much power players do actually hold, and they can be effective, they can take action. And I just think every action adds up. And I know you're saying that I might not have any faith in these organizations, which I don't really, but you always have to have hope. And I think hope comes from action. And I think I just have to keep thinking that. And so, like, professionally, my background is I work in peace and human rights and civil resistance. So I see it every day. I'm working in this field every single day, and you just have to find any action you can to take because they do add up, and you can see like small chinks of light and chinks of change, and something has to give.
Yeah. And in a very weird way, it can be seen as an opportunity because we haven't seen a massive revolutionary moment in terms of a sports boycott on this front whatsoever. Like, and again, to kind of repeat myself, it feels that if there's going to be a country who does that, because it is going to come down to international sport, if there is a country who's going to do it, Ireland is probably in the coterie of countries who is most likely to do it.
Yeah, I'd agree. But also, having said that, last month, the under 19 Jordanian basketball team in the World Cup refused to play Israel. So there are slowly, stances and changes happening. And that has to be positive. That has to give us, some kind of momentum here. So, yeah, we just have to keep pushing.
I know, we had this discussion as well last year, but just about the crowdfunding thing, even just to maybe disarm that reasoning, because, like, part of me, as I say, it's a smaller part of me now than 18 months ago, understands the idea that, look, Basketball Ireland was out in the wilderness for so long after the crash, and, there's like a financial PTSD about being slapped with a potentially €180,000 fine in total between the two games. You'd imagine there would be international support for this on a financial level. If that were to be forthcoming, then immediately the most compelling reason that Basketball Ireland have to not fulfil this fixture is taken away from them.
Yeah, like, I mean, if money's the problem, that can be overcome quite easily with government support or crowdfunding. And I do want to say, like, basketball is a very underfunded sport in this country. It is like one of the fastest growing, but it is underfunded. And basketball has done amazing to go from where we were to where we are now. And I'm not like denying that for a second. But if money is the problem here, there are ways around it, and we can, let's we can get the government, get crowdfunding. If that's the only problem, it's overcome. Like, we can overcome it.
One other part of the story, which is just worth mentioning, and this was reported by the Irish Independent last week, is that Bernard O'Byrne, who's the former CEO of Basketball Ireland and indeed the FAI, has actually written to FIBA Europe asking that they consider the immediate and total suspension of Israel from all competition. So in his letter, he requested for FIBA European Board to consider the immediate total suspension of Israel basketball from all FIBA Europe participation until further notice in view of the genocidal actions of the Israeli state in Gaza, as documented extensively by the United Nations and many other trusted international organisations and individuals. I know you wouldn't be aware of what the inner workings are of FIBA or who's actually in the room or who's actually reading this letter, but there's your strong language. There's the language we needed to see in the Basketball Ireland statement earlier on. And there is at least something that we now know being put in front of FIBA using the required language, which should push them into action.
It should. And the more people that speak out, the better. I mean, for myself and for Irish Sport for Palestine, we have contacted all these organisations and been met with silence. So, yes, hearing people, and especially people who had positions or currently have positions, speaking out can only be good and, like, hopefully help. You just don't know what's going to be the thing that gives. But the more pressure they're put on, the better. And I'll even cite FIBA's own regulations that they should have removed Israel a long time ago, quite aside from this genocide, because Israel has basketball clubs in illegal settlements, and it's the exact same as FIFA. They have soccer clubs in illegal settlements, and that contravenes FIBA and FIFA rules about territorial integrity. So they should have been removed for that alone. And there was also a case where a former Israeli player had actually gotten on to FIBA and brought a case that they should look at this rule, that there are two clubs contravening their own statutes by having clubs in illegal settlements, and FIBA did nothing about it. So they just, and FIFA dragging their heels about the same thing. I mean, they know about it. They know they're just not doing anything, and it's that selectivity. It's they're saying, "Oh, we're hiding behind this sporting neutrality and political neutrality in sports," and it just doesn't exist because sports and politics mix. Sport doesn't exist in a vacuum. It always has. You're just being selective, and you're double standards, and you're choosing what to act on, and it's justifying your inaction right now.
And it is so much bigger than politics as well, what is happening right now. Broad enough one, Rebecca, but what do you think happens next here? Like, even in terms of your own actions, and like, as I say, I know that you protested outside Leinster House last year, in terms of what the basketball team might do themselves. What do you anticipate will be the next, I guess, movement on this story? Because, as I say, 5 p.m. on a Friday when we've got this latest piece of news. So there will be a pause on this until next week. What now happens?
Well, I can imagine that the games will be moved to a neutral venue behind closed doors. I imagine there won't be a lot of advertising around it like last time. Um, I just really hope that the players are given support if the game goes ahead. If players do go ahead with it, I hope they're given support. I mean, I'm here. I will offer support to them. There's a lot of avenues that you can come and talk to us. If anything about that, Irish for Palestine also. But we're going to continue. I mean, we've been in touch with activists in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Luxembourg. If we can get on, like, to civil society there, pressure those teams to hopefully come together with Ireland and take a stand together, that could be good. But yeah, I imagine they're also going to just be focusing on, because the first two games are before. So I think they're playing Bosnia and Herzegovina and Luxembourg before the Israeli game. So yeah, maybe they'll be focusing on that. But I really hope the players are protected if they do go ahead with this. And yeah.
Rebecca O'Keeffe, always good to chat to you. Thanks a million for making time for us on a Friday evening.
Thank you so much.